So do is there. So italicized do is the auxiliary form, whereas the other do, which is underlined, is the main verb. So though the two do's used in the sentence they are same, but their function is different, their positioning is different. As a part of speech, they are different. The first do, which is in the italics, is the auxiliary verb, and it helps the main verb to turn into negative. Whereas the underlined do is the main verb, which denotes some action, specific action of the noun or the subject. So the underlined do has directly something to do with the subjects, that is Ram and Shyam, whereas do, which is italics, has something to do directly with the main verb. So they help the main verb to turn into negative. So I use do, not do. The two do, they appear differently, they function differently, I mean to say. So I have explained in the last line, do occur twice, but the function of do, both the do's, is totally different. The first one, which is in the italics, is the auxiliary verb, which helps the main verb when I turn it into negative. In the same way, if I want to make the interrogative sentence, I will have to use do auxiliary again. For example, if it is assertive sentence, Ram and Shyam do illegal activity, then if I want to turn into interrogative, then I will to use do again, and I will have to begin the sentence with do, and I would read it rather, do Ram and Shyam do any illegal activity, and I have to put a question mark. Again in this sentence, friends, you find that do is occurring twice, in the beginning as well as after the subject. So it is obvious the do which appears first is an auxiliary verb, because it helps the main verb when it is turned into an interrogative sentence, whereas the do which follows the subject is the main verb and it has got some specific meaning, whereas the do which occurs in the beginning of the sentence has no specific meaning, but in a way it also denotes the tense, because it is do, that is base form, it is present tense. As against did, if it is in the past tense, we use did. In the same way, if it is third person singular in the present tense, then we use does. But in all the variants of the do form do, it has no specific meaning, friends, when it occurs as the auxiliary verb. This is thing of prime importance, friends, that there is distinction between do as the main verb and do as the auxiliary verb. This is very important to remember when we want to turn the sentences maybe into negative or maybe into interrogative. So friends, decide precisely what kind of auxiliary is to be used when. In the next slide also, I have given some examples. I have given you very fine example and very easy also. Mahesh likes music. Now I have shown both the operations, transformation form. In the first I have made it into negative. Now you can see does not occur in the assertive sentence as the auxiliary verb. It may occur only as the main verb. So when I want to turn into negative, I will have to use does, because it is, as I told you earlier, friends, it is third person singular pronoun, noun. So I have to use does in the present tense, and does is in the italics. So it is used, as you can recall, as the auxiliary verb. It is used to make the sentence, to turn the sentence into negative. In the same way, if I want to turn the sentence into interrogative, then I have to prefix does to the sentence. I have to remove s or es from the verb, and I will have to put a question mark at the end. So the answer is, does Mahesh like music? That is question pattern. Now you can see the use of form do as the auxiliary verb. In the first sentence, it is negative, so it helps the verb to turn into negative. In the next, that is last one, it also helps this main verb to turn into interrogative. Now in the next slide, I have given you some examples in various tenses. For example, I have given you a very basic line, Keshav read the Gita. You can compare, friends, that here Keshav is the subject. In earlier sentence it was Mahesh. It is also, it takes the third person singular form of the pronoun. Here also Keshav takes the third person singular pronoun. But if you go to the verb, in the earlier sentence, friends, it was likes, the base form of like takes S. But in this sentence, I have not used S in the verb. This is precisely because I have used the verb read into past tense. It is very important to remember the tense when we are operating upon some transformation activity like negation and interrogation. So friends, this is very important sentence. Keshav, I must read it not as read but as read. Keshav read the Gita and not Keshav read the Gita. If it takes S in the sentence, then it becomes reads. But if there is no S to this verb form, it becomes obviously the past tense. So the past tense of read is pronounced as read. So the sentence is into the past tense, and how it occurs when we are using it into so many different ways. Now I have given you the exercise on the short answer. The line goes like this: Keshav read the Gita. Now question tag, if I would like to add, because the verb read is in the past tense, because the subject is the third person singular form, so there is no other model auxiliaries or auxiliaries. In absence of this, I am supposed to use the form of do, and because it is past tense, I will have to use did form. So the question tag would be didn't he. He is used simply because of the subject of the sentence, which is Keshav, and Keshav is the third person singular, so it takes he. And did is used, friends, because the verb is into the past tense. So it is very important to remember the basic pattern of the verb when we are operating upon it in terms of the question tag. So the verb is in past tense, we will have to use the past tense of auxiliary do, which is did. So as you can see in the slide, didn't is used, and you can also see, friends, I have used the contracted form which we are supposed to do when we are doing the question tag. Next is, do we use car? That is the line. And friends, let us give a short answer. This type of questions are always asked in the paper. If I want to use a kind of assertive answer, then yes, we do. Now you can find here do is used in two different ways. It also denotes the main verb, it also denotes the auxiliary verb, that is do. So this is the way how the auxiliaries work. In the next slide, friends, I would like to show you various forms of the form do. Friends, you can also have the same type of forms of other two auxiliaries, that is have and be. Now for our reference, ready reference, I have given the table showing various forms of auxiliary verb do. What you can do for yourself is, you can replace do and you can fill up the boxes with the other forms, with the forms of have and be, which are the other auxiliaries. That should be your homework, and I think it should be very easy. Does is in a way very special kind of auxiliary. So you can say there are three main variants, that is does, do and did. I have shown how they are used in the earlier slides in terms of negative and interrogative sentences. In the last column, friends, you can see how they are used when they are used in the contracted negative form. So doesn't, don't and didn't, these are the contracted negative forms of do, which are generally used in the question tag pattern or the short answers. So I think we should remember this, and I am very much sure, friends, that we are very much familiar with all these forms of do. And same way, you also must be knowing the other forms or the forms of other auxiliaries have and be. And this table you can use for the ready reference. What you can do is, friends, you can try yourself and find out the forms of have and be for yourself. Now in the next slide, I would like to talk about the other auxiliary form of have. Important thing to remember again is, like the auxiliary do, have can also occur as the main verb and as the auxiliary verb in a sentence. But again, the function of the two is totally different from each other. Now you can see, I have given you very easy example. I have just visited Ayodhya, and the first sentence is, I have a fine mobile handset. The first sentence, that is, I have a fine mobile handset, in this I have underlined have. In the next sentence, I have used have again, which I have written into italics. The sentence is, we have just visited Ayodhya. Now it is easy for us to find that have occurs in both the sentences, but the function and the positioning of the two is totally different. We have to mark the difference between the two haves, the first one which is underlined, the other one which is written into italics. Now the first have, which is underlined, is used as the main verb. It has got specific distinctive meaning and it has direct affiliation with the subject of the sentence, that is I. In the next line, in the next sentence, friends, which is, we have just visited Ayodhya, here I have italicized have, and it has different function, different positioning, and it has the function of the auxiliary verbs, as against I have, which is underlined, is the main verb. So this is the basic difference. When I have used have into italics as the auxiliary verb, it does not have any specific meaning, but it helps the verb, main verb I mean to say, to show the meaning. It can also be used to turn into negative and also interrogative. So mark the difference between the two functions, two positioning of the verb form of have. In the first, it is the main verb, in the other, it is the auxiliary verb. It is very important, friends, to know what function have is doing in a specific sentence. In the next slide, friends, I would like to show how they are used in various ways. So I have given you two examples. As I told you that it also helps the main verb to show the tense. Now these are the two uses of have in different forms. The forms of have, as I have shown you, are have, has and had. And in the next two examples, friends, as you can observe, the forms of have are used as the auxiliary form, auxiliary verbs, and they do not want specific tense. In the first line, which reads like this, I have finished my work just now. Here I have written have, which is into italics, is used as the auxiliary verb and not as the main verb, because it has direct relation with the main verb, which is finished. So when the main verb in the past participle form takes have or the form has, it denotes the past present perfect tense. So the role of have in this sentence is to show the tense, and as we know, have and has as the auxiliaries are used to show the present perfect tense. In this sentence, have is used to show the tense of the sentence, which is present perfect tense. Now you can also guess very easily, friends, why I have used had in the next line, that is, the terrorists had escaped before the police arrived. I have also used the word had, HAD, in italics. Just I have done this just to show that had is not the main verb. It is used here as the helping verb which helps the main verb, which is escaped, and it shows here the tense, which is past perfect tense. So friends, the auxiliary form of verb, I mean have, is used to show the tense, that is perfect tenses. It may be present perfect tense or it may be past perfect tense. So in the first sentence, have is used to show the present perfect tense, as against the next sentence it is used to show the past perfect tense. Friends, let us now go to the next very important auxiliary verb, which is be. As I told you friends, all these main auxiliaries or primary auxiliaries or the helping verbs of do, have and be, they have got their own specific functions. They are used to make the sentences into negative, to turn the sentence into interrogative, and they also denote tense. They are used in question tags, they are used in short answers. But the be is very specific in the sense that it have got the maximum forms in English, and as I have shown you here, it also can occur as the main verb as well as the auxiliary verb in a sentence. The most important thing, as I told you earlier, to remember is when it occurs as the main verb, it has got specific meaning, it has direct relation with the subject of the sentence, as against the be form used as the auxiliary form in a sentence has no specific meaning, but it has something to do with the main verb of the sentence. It helps the main verb in terms of so many functions. Now there are some variations, there are some so many forms of form be. There are in all 8 forms, and you can recollect them very easily. For your ready reference, I have mentioned them into italics. These are the forms of be. We can start with be as the base form, then is, am, are. As you friends, all of you know, is and is, am, are used in the present tense format when they are used as the auxiliary verbs. Was and were